if you want to be the church that has 1,000, 2,000 people, you probably want to present your video in the way that would attract the sort of person that wants to go to a church or listen to a church that is that size.
Welcome to the Digital Ministry Podcast. I'm your host, Nick. And as always, the Digital Ministry Podcast is brought to you. It's a production of Media Impact International. That makes it sound a lot bigger than it actually is, Corey. So that's why I always say it that way. But we try to bring guests on the show that are doing cool things that are helpful for folks that are working in digital ministry. And today I've got Corey Alderin here with us from Sermon Shots. Corey, thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I listened to some of your conversations with some of our mutual friends recently, just talking about how AI is driving video production and all kinds of other things like helpful social media content creation and really speeding teams. And so I'm excited to learn more about Sermon Shots and hear it directly from you, one of the co-founders.
Yeah,
and get some of your insights. So thanks for spending some time.
Absolutely.
So for those that don't know, tell us what Sermon Shots is and kind of how it got started.
Yeah, Sermon Shots, it's really a repurposing tool. Turn your sermon into lots of different content. So it's an efficient way of creating social media content, discipleship content all around the sermon. So things like clips, those are really popular. Images from your sermon, discussion guide, devotional, thumbnails, lots of different content that you can create and use throughout the week from your sermon.
And really, from what you've seen, well, how many customers or how many accounts do you guys have, or like, is it?
Yeah. We are up to about 8,500 total churches.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's great. I kind of hesitated asking the question because I didn't know the answer, and if it's like, oh, we've got 20, like.
Yeah, we were fortunate to be ahead of the curve a little bit when the sort of AI stuff was coming out. So we had some fortunate years there for a while of being ahead and being one of the only ones really out there to be able to use or do what we do. So we had a good head start.
That's awesome. And the AI space is, it's growing so quickly. Like it changes week to week. I'm sure you're tracking this stuff too.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you keeping pace with what's going on?
Well, I don't know if anybody can really keep pace with how fast AI is just in everything and all the stuff. Yeah, there's no way to keep up. I keep up on the things that are important and to what I'm doing in business, whether that means what's helping the church within Sermon Shots, or it's just me being able to utilize it well for my team and, me using it to run the business. But there's no way I could keep up with all of the things that AI is doing.
I think this is going to be a fun conversation because across 8,500 users, I'm sure you all are seeing all kinds of things, trends emerge and stuff like that. So thinking about that, what are some things that have changed from when you got started in this to today? Like how people are using the tool, or what's driving views or something.
Yeah. Well, I would say first of all, from day one, just because AI has exploded and it can be used in a lot of different places, Sermon Shots really has transformed a lot. So when we first started, it was purely only a clip making tool. So that was all we did. But as we started hearing from customers about different things and seeing people use their sermon in different ways, we started to transition this sort of vision of Sermon Shots just away from just being clips from the sermon, but more about how can you use the sermon to make more impact, basically. And a lot of things have come around social media. So I would say because of AI, I think it has opened up churches' ability to produce more content, things that maybe they wish they were able to do a few years ago that they just didn't have the time for, the staff for. All things that probably, similar things of us day to day of like the more we can do now because of AI. I can, the most basic thing is I can write emails a lot quicker now, right? So I've got that's the most basic thing in with AI. But if you just expand that out to all the things that have developed over the last 3 years, that AI has really been around. Churches I think are starting to see more and more all the sort of content and abilities that they can use. And if I think about sermon shots, like around the sermon shots ecosystem a little bit, churches are doing video way more. I mean, that's one of the most complicated things to do is any sort of video editing, right? And so churches now can, before this AI boom, maybe we're not really doing any sort of video content. But now, a church with 40 people, 50 people in their church are now being able to do video pretty easily. So
COVID was really interesting because it if churches were in a space where you couldn't gather and meet during lockdown or whatever, it pushed them into this, sometimes kicking and screaming. But I hosted the pastor of my mom and dad's church back in Indiana came out a couple weekends ago. And we were just talking about this, and he said, they tried to figure out like video switchers and cameras and mics and all this stuff. And he's like, what we settled on was they just put an iPhone on a tripod, and it's, kind of smaller, but they probably have 120 people on a weekend.
Yeah.
But they're just capturing video off of an iPhone.
And it works.
And he said it works great.
Yeah.
Which, so somebody like that, so they basically just record that long format, and then you can dump that into sermon shots. And it started with clipping it and things like that. But I'm kind of recapping. I know you know this, but for those who haven't seen the tool or whatever. And so, is it intelligently grabbing like key points or clips out of that sermon? Is it processing kind of the whole context and then saying, here's the highlights, or how does that work?
Yeah. When we think about the clips specifically and only within sermon shots, what it does is when you upload your whole sermon, it is ingesting the entirety of your sermon in terms of the video, the text. So it's transcribed, so it understands the whole sermon, everything about it. And AI is just getting really good at picking out like what are these impactful moments, and that's essentially what the AI is doing. It's just saying, where's this really good like amen moment, a place that'll kind of stop the person to be like, oh, that is really good, and then it builds a clip based on that moment and builds a clip around that. Sometimes it's 20 seconds, sometimes 40, 60, 90 seconds, depending on like the context and what that is. But it's finding 10 moments of those, basically.
Oh, really? Okay.
And so then you can take those and then you can edit it in a really easy. When I say the word edit, sometimes that brings up some like, oh, that's where it gets complicated. But the editing process within this is really designed around helping a church that's not a video editing church. And so you simply just select the sentences that you want. So if it selects something you like and you're like, I don't like that, you just unselect a sentence, and it's as simple as that. And it like,
so it's like transcripting and you just highlight what you want.
Yep, exactly.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yep. And then it's got a cool like smart, we call it smart search feature into it too. So like if there's something specific that you're like, okay, that did pick out really great like moments for social media, but really what I want is like, we're talking about prayer this week and I really want something about prayer. You just type in prayer and it'll find the moments about prayer in your sermon as well. So
oh, cool.
Yeah. How
did you get into this? Like, what's your background?
Well, my background depends on how far back you want to go. I started off my career, I guess, out of college in market research. So I did market research for a pharmaceutical company, and just one day felt like I was supposed to start my own business. And so I started working on some things on the side, not clearly knowing exactly what it was I wanted to do, but did various things and got to a point where I was able to quit my job to do things full time. And along the way, I taught myself how to code
Okay.
as a way to, build something we were trying to build. And I was having a hard time finding a developer that was consistent and did what they said they were going to do, and so I taught myself how to coded a few things, and Sermon Shots actually came out of one of the biggest projects that I worked on, which was a design platform for authors, and it had a video editing tool in it, like a more of a video editing tool than like Sermon Shots is, and so
For authors.
for
That's
authors,
interesting.
yeah, for authors, and it when we sort of had this idea right after COVID, hearing from churches a lot that clips was what they were trying to make. I was pretty fortunate that the video tool that was built inside of that, actually, we were able to reuse. It was like 80% of the way towards what we needed for the first sort of draft of Sermon Shots. So, yeah, that's a quick summary.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. What was that process like? I mean, did you kind of build out MVP and then get some beta testers, or
Yeah.
did you just launch?
Well, so at one point, my business partner and I knew that we wanted to do something within the church. That was kind of like, we have this passion for the church. And the simplest thing, the quickest thing that came to our mind was this tool that we created. Let's just create the exact same thing for churches, which was essentially Canva. And little did I know, moving into the church space, that 99% of churches just get it for free, get Canva for free. I was like, oh, well, that's kind of hard to compete with then. So nobody wanted it. But in multiple conversations with people, we were hearing this. But if you could make this be for clips, this is something Canva doesn't do, or, hearing this in a lot of different ways. And this is where my market research background kind of came into, like, I picked up on a trend there. And so it was, that's what we want to create. And I can't remember if we were talking about this off air or on air, but we just so happened to meet Kenny Jang on I don't remember why, other than he just like reached out for something, just because he is who he is, a helpful guy. And he was giving some feedback, and he loved the idea that we had of like creating this thing. And I was bouncing this idea off of him, and he just said, hey, if you could create this, I've got a group of church leaders coming together in, I think it was like 2 months. If you can finish this out and have an MVP ready, you could present it and they'll all give you feedback. These are all people in your space. They would be valuable input. And so I was like, okay. So I got the dev team together, and we're like, here's what we need to do. Let's do it. It's a good opportunity. So in a couple of months, we put together an MVP as a way to present it to the church, the group of church software people that were there. And we got awesome feedback from it. And so we just decided we're on to something and kept it going. And about a month later, because we were so close to having something that worked, about a month later, we got a few beta users to try it out and give us feedback. And that sort of confirmed things.
So I come out of the out of the software space, and the business models are pretty clear in industry. Not so much like in the church niche or ministry, at large. How have you guys tackled that? And just to give some context, like, I'm genuinely curious about this, because I think, and I might have even mentioned this on this podcast before, there's so many commercially available tools that are incredibly powerful, except they're expensive when you hold that up against most ministry budgets.
Yeah.
So Canva, for example, they've got all these premium users, and that monetizes their platform. It allows them to do the offering for nonprofits for free.
Yeah.
But if it's, purpose built, how are you guys wrestling with that?
Well, Um, it's almost impossible to compete with free, right? Like we're not, like I was saying before, like it's just not an area that I'm trying to compete in. Price can't be the competition, like the way to compete
That
in this space. That's just what it is.
100%,
Yeah.
100%.
And
It's a race to the bottom. That's a bad race to be in.
yeah. And it's hard to, like, in the church space or just in the nonprofit space in general. Like if that's where most of your customers are and they're getting something for free, I, it just, yeah, it's hard. So I think that there's been a couple of points throughout the last few years where the decision has been made, because it's just like, price is not where we're competing. How do we make this decision then? All along the
Mm-hmm.
line, we've had competition come in sort of the like bigger space of like clips, for example. Early on, we were one of the first people, one of the first softwares to actually turn long form video into short form video. We just so happened to be in the church space,
Right.
and some of these big companies that were getting millions of dollars in funding. What you're probably talking about is, well, now they don't have to worry about the cost to acquire a customer. It doesn't matter what the price is at this point. It's all about how can we get as many customers as possible, right? And so make it as cheap as possible to not make that a barrier. That's just not an area where we could be. And so we had to make decisions where it was, okay, instead of competing on price, what we have to do is we have to compete in creating more value. And
Mm-hmm.
so really where it came was, how can we just create so much value for the church that it feels like the price is way worth it. It's way worth it because of how much time it's saving the church. And that's kind of how I think about this, rather than how can we be like get as much money as possible and funding and drive the value down, or the cost down, and get as many customers as possible. So it's,
That
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you go ahead.
That value exchange exists like within the content as well. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about was, and across so many users, I'm sure you've got a decent view of this, but there's a balance between kind of the authenticity of the message, and I always struggle to define this well because it all sounds negative, but it's like the markety, salesy, like business of church kind of aspect to it. It's like
Yeah.
there's a little bit of like, we want the message to go out there. Well, primarily it's most people I talk to. I want the message out there. I want to reach more people with this message of the gospel, or topics of the sermon, or whatever the case may be. But it's really easy to come off like a sales pitch sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think value cuts across that.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
what do you see among your user base? Like, how are they balancing that?
In terms of like how their video presents, like how their sermon presents, or
Yeah, I mean, presentation, but also maybe like what are they choosing in terms of content pieces, or what are they focusing on? If it's I can only think of like really terrible examples, like like all of the church critiques that we hear all the time, like, oh, you only want my money and stuff like that. Or,
yeah.
if somebody's always posting about like their building program and trying to like reach out into the community to raise funds, that doesn't actually, I don't think that happens as much as people that are not in the church like to say that it does.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm talking about, like the content focus. Or am I totally off? Like, is it not an issue, and you're getting the reach because the value is there?
So I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're getting at. So like in terms of how to present your church publicly, like on social media,
Mm-hmm.
for example, is that like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess, although sometimes this isn't a great answer, it sort of depends on who are you as a church? What do you want to be as a church? Like, I guess, for example, there are the big churches that have the best looking stage and the best audio, the best video quality, all of that, right? And then there's churches that I've seen meeting in their house, and they're just like literally in their house, and their video is there, right? Um, I think it depends on who. Like, if you ask one person, like, oh, the video in the house, like, why would they not put a better like background, not make it look like they're in the house, right?
Right.
But the next person you ask might be actually like, who's that church that feels like they need this like really big TV screen and the best audio? I can hear this one just as good. That's the church I want to go to. So like,
Mm.
I almost feel like it's not necessarily about having always the best. I think that is important to present yourself well, but like, who are you targeting? Who's the audience that you want? Who are you as a church? Like, if you are that, I'm using house church as the example because it's like the smallest
Sure.
on one side of the scale, but there's multiple. Like, if that's who you are, you never want to be above 50 people a week. Well, that's how you should present yourself on social media, is that not present yourself as this, because then when you have the visitor, right? And vice versa. If you want to be the church that has 1,000, 2,000 people, you probably want to present your video in the way that would attract the sort of person that wants to go to a church or listen to a church that is that size.
Yeah, that's really helpful. We talk a lot about, and sorry, I don't think I was phrasing the question well, but I think you nailed what I was trying to get at. We talk a lot at MII, and we work with over 200 different ministries around the world, and kind of developing that target persona, like who's that core audience that you're trying to go after, and then really working on like segmenting that audience, targeting well and then positioning well in terms of like your messaging and your communication and calls to action and all those things, and really being clear about like the purpose and intent. Are you finding a need to kind of guide people through any of that process? Is there user enablement that you find is helpful for people using your tool, or is that more kind of intuitive and people are, just putting out there, what they kind of what they have a vision for? Or you see what I'm saying? Like, is it how much training is involved? Not like in the aspects of the tool, but like how to create content that resonates with the audience you're trying to reach.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about how AI changes so much, right? Social media changes a lot too. Oh, like what social media, like what the platforms want, right? I'm thinking about this in the lens of social media because it's the biggest way of getting like your content out, right? So it's more than social media, but social media is a big one. And things have changed so much, and each individual church doesn't always have the professional social media person that's tracking every trend, right? And so it's easy to sort of get lost in, well, what am I supposed to do on social media? Like, what works now? And so it can be a challenge. Like, I feel like it's a challenge at times. My business is doing it, right? Social media is an important thing. Like, what should I be posting? And I think the church has a couple advantages that like can help them kind of alleviate their sort of stress or their thinking about like, what are these things that I should be posting? They have this great piece of content, their sermon, right? Like, and they want their sermon to get out into the world. And social media just has all these different formats now. The full sermon maybe is not great for like Facebook and Instagram. YouTube, it works. But there's all these other things you can do too. And you don't have to spice it up or anything on social media. Just take content from your sermon to do that. And one of the things that I think works so well for the church, especially the church that's trying to use social media to grab attention and get people into their church or watch online, either one. You take that, you take content from your sermon, and you're not only getting this engaging piece of content, but you're also at the same time showing them what church looks like at your church, because
Yeah.
you're using
Yeah.
your church stuff to do it. And so you kind of get the best of both, which is great engaging content, and this is what church is like in 30 seconds. So I think the church has a great advantage if you kind of keep it that simple. The church is in a good space to be able to do so.
I think that I agree completely. I think you're reminding me of a conversation I had with my buddy Adam Silverness recently, who works with Young Life, and he's helping to develop like digital outreach strategies for like local Young Life directors.
Yeah.
And I imagine, are you familiar with Young Life at all? Have you ever?
I'm not.
So it's like high school aged. It's like a parachurch organization. They work closely with a lot of local churches typically. But what he's finding is, so they have weekly club. And it's Young Life would say that it's a place for like local high school kids to belong and have fun, be accepted, and then, hear about Jesus.
Yeah.
And that, in the way that I just stated it, is very like mission statement kind of structure. Not real attractive, if you were to go out with that line of messaging to a bunch of high school students. It's like, it sounds like a pitch, but what he's finding, and he's trained over 100 now different regional directors within Young Life, and they're showing on video and they're posting it on social media just what club is. It's not a marketing pitch. It's not, branded well. It's just, here's what happened this week, and it looks fun, and kids are having fun, and you might see somebody that and they're seeing incredible results, like huge, in like a doubling of effectiveness, all for the purpose that or for the reason that you just mentioned. It's like people are just getting a chance to kind of lurk before they come and join.
Yep. And it's sort of like this inside view, right? Of like what it's like. It's not a scripted, like, I've got this 30-second video I'm going to create, and I have all these things I want to say, and I'm going to say it perfect, and I'm not going to mess up, all that, like, or it's this unscripted thing that you're just taking from something that was never really intended specifically for social media, but it's unscripted in that way, and you're using it. And I think that's how even especially the younger generation actually really does appreciate the unscripted version of things.
It's a little more authentic.
Yeah.
Huh. That's interesting. So what about, what are opportunities? I get everything that you just said. Like, the sermon is this incredible long form piece of content. Like, you can repurpose it. 100% agree. What about more like in the discipleship vein? Like, are there opportunities you see there, or anybody finding some kind of creative uses for that on social?
Oh, discipleship on social media.
Or like lessons, it can still be kind of one direction, but
okay. Yeah. Well, so what I see on social media as the closest to maybe like a discipleship thing that I've seen work the best from churches is churches who will post, and I am going back to the sermon, but post some sort of like 5-day devotional from the sermon.
Sure.
And so it's like, it's a different kind of format of the sermon, but relatable and short, which is perfect for social media, right? Like it's short, 5 sentences, and every day is sort of like around that sermon. And you can add visuals and videos to that if you want to. But I've seen some pastors, and some pastors have told me that 5-day devotional actually is getting more engagement than even visuals are. So I think it likely depends on your church on which one works better. But pastors have told me that that's been really helpful for engagement for them.
What are you seeing in terms, or maybe it's directing people? Like, how are you encouraging people to start? So if somebody starts with sermon shots and you just put it everywhere, or do you focus in? Is there any kind of audience consideration?
Audience consideration. I don't know if this is what you meant by the question, but one of the great things about social media right now, some of the changes that have happened, like Reels. I mean, I don't know if I would still call it changes because it's been around for a little while, but I don't know if not all churches totally can appreciate this, which is Reels, which when you post are not going to just the people that follow your page, right? Like follow your church. So it's not just going to your congregation who follows your church. It actually is just as likely or more likely to be reaching other people outside of your congregation. And so I think that's one really good, valuable thing about Reels, especially for the church, is being able to reach lots of people for two reasons. One is getting new people in your church, but also just reaching people that won't ever go to a church, but that video, for whatever reason, gets inside their feed. So,
for whatever reason, is interesting because I feel like the algorithms they've always been changing. That's ever go all the way back to like SEO and pay-per-click campaigns. Like everything's being tweaked all the time. But the ability to target is almost, I mean, I'm running some campaigns right now, and I've done this for over a decade. Like the targeting is so much less important today, it seems like. Yeah, you agree with that?
Like you trying to say specifically that this needs to go to this person or this person or this person? Yeah. You don't have to, right? Like it's all about the content of the video is really the targeting that you're doing. So it's like you want to reach some general, if you want to reach Christians, talk very Christian-like on this video, and like, that might be the wrong way. Churchy words, right? Like, yeah.
Insider language.
Yeah. But you want to reach a random person, like talk about current topics, or make the video about some current topic. It can have a great faith, kingdom message. But if you're talking to, I don't want to come across the wrong way, but if you put Jesus in there specifically, the AI may not give it to the person that will disregard it because you said Jesus, right? Like the underlying message can be about Jesus, but if it's more about current topics, you're going to be more likely to hit people who are wanting to know about the current topic. Those things just trend more, and they're more likely to get in front of those people that won't come to church.
Do you think like life events and current topics? I tend to think about what headlines are in the news today, but that also probably applies to kind of like felt needs, kind of more evergreen, topical content. That's like broader. It's not just churchy.
Yeah. Life things that happen in life, right? I mean, even some of the most popular things that come up in people's feeds are like animals, for example, right? Like, right off the top of my head, I'm going to try to figure out how to make this relevant. But like, if there's a person who their feed is full of things about dogs and cats, and that's 90% of the videos that they watch, how do you get in their feed? You talk about dogs or cats, and then you link it to the relevant message, right? So it's these AI platforms understand what you like to watch, and they understand what the video is. They're just trying to match up that video with the person that wants to watch it. And so if you're talking about dogs and cats and this person over here, that's all he watches and listens to, there's a good chance you'll get into his feed. So it runs a bad example, but
I get the point. It just makes me think it also runs in the opposite direction, which goes back to your kind of authentic voice comment. Like these algorithms are getting really good at finding who will resonate with whatever it is that you are.
Yeah.
Do you think one platform's better than the next right now? I know this is shifting landscape all the time, but you see any trends there?
Better is probably a
Better probably needs a definition.
relative.
Actually.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of ways I could go about with the word better.
Yeah.
Platforms definitely have a demographic, a unique demographic, I think, or at least a more generally have a different demographic.
Okay.
I do think this is changing a bit still, but like Facebook generally leans older, right? That's
Sure.
probably not big news, but generally leans a bit older. Instagram's a bit younger. TikTok, for example, is probably the youngest, but I mean it's changing too. So I think it sort of depends, but the content you're creating almost can go anywhere. So, because like if you're creating a video for Facebook Reels, it's going to fit on all of them, and it only takes you once you have the system in place, it only takes you another 30 seconds to post it on a different one. So, I kind of think it shouldn't matter if you're creating something for Facebook, just post it everywhere.
So where you're at right now is clip the content, put it everywhere, and let the algorithms sort it out.
Figure it out. And do it a lot, especially if you're posting as Reels. Yes, clip it and post a lot, because
like what's a lot?
Yeah, that's relative too, right? I would say no. I very rarely see a church that hits the post a lot mark, whatever that number is.
Oh, really? Okay.
But
is that like 10 a week or more?
Yeah, why not? Why not 2 a day? And because it is a lot, and so if you can't, some churches don't have 10 clippable moments in a sermon potentially. But this goes beyond just clips of your sermon, other content as well. There's a time constraint for sure. But if like the more you post, it's not. I think the tendency is to think to the old way of social media, which is like my audience is going to get bored by me or like get upset that I'm posting all this, right? But like your audience no longer is the people that follow you. It's the universe of it's the whole world really is your audience now. Because of what we were saying before, like the video is going to be shown to the person that likes that video, not your church. And so
right.
This video, when you see 100 views on this video, 200 on this one, 100 on this one, 400 on this one, there's maybe some overlap, but not a lot, especially if they're different kinds of videos, right? There's very few people who saw all 4 of your videos, and they're not like, oh, why did he post another one? It's more, they're unlikely to see all of them. They're going to see the one that the AI platform thinks that they should see. So I think post a lot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just anecdotally from like the user side. Well, my first thought actually is this is a lot easier than it used to be.
Yeah.
Because you had to schedule all that stuff and, now just throw it up and let the system sort it out. But what I was going to say is like that comment about your audience is not your audience. I don't know exactly how you phrased it, but that's a really interesting idea. And trying to understand the overlap, I think, could be helpful, but sounds really hard. Like, how would people try to get a handle on that? Like, am I getting, I got this question this week actually from ministry. They're like, what does how do your views and engagement break down? And my first reaction was like, that's such a basic question. And it's also kind of a vanity metric that I've, in the world of ministry, I'm kind of like, it doesn't matter as much as it used to, or as maybe you think it does. Mm-hmm. But if you think about the overlap across different channels, there is kind of an effectiveness metric there that can be identified. But I'm sitting here thinking through like how I would go about trying to measure that. And I can't come up with a quick answer. Like, do you have any insight into that?
Measure the effectiveness of what my social media presence is doing. Is that like?
Well, effectiveness seems like a bit deeper metric. If these algorithms are getting really good at targeting people that will resonate with whatever it is that you're creating, and you're putting it everywhere, how much overlap does exist? And the reason why I would want to know that is a little bit about like, I'm trying to think of a word that's not brand equity because I hate that idea, but that's kind of what it is.
Sure.
It's a little bit of like share of voice. It's a little bit of stickiness. It's like, am I connecting with the same person on multiple channels?
Mm.
Because then that all kind of leads to like outcomes, you know, and calls to action. So maybe it is people choose to like get involved, or maybe they subscribe to like the YouTube channel and they're watching the sermon regularly. Maybe they're coming to church. You know, it's some of those like downstream metrics is what kind of the purpose is.
Absolutely.
And the visibility of kind of the overlap, or maybe share a voice is a good way to talk about it. But like I've done this a lot. I'm sitting here struggling to think about how I would really kind of visualize that. Do you have any insights into that? Or?
Yeah. So I think I'm understanding the question now better. I would, if I'm understanding it, I would agree that the views on social media this is not our goal. It's the
okay.
That's if I'm going to use a marketing message that will make sense to you, that's the top of the funnel. Like,
right.
The end result is getting to what's the next step, and what's the final step that you really want. Ultimately, the church's purpose is to make disciples, right? So like that's the bottom of the funnel. The top of the funnel is just, you got to be known. Like the church, the message, whatever it is that you're trying to showcase on social media, it's got to be known first before you can get down to the bottom of the funnel. And so I think of social media more as the top of the funnel thing. What's the next thing you want to do? And we'll do our best to get them to that next step. But social media is not, it's hard to track. It's hard to track if people are going to that next next step, I think, right? I mean, we can track it a little bit on like, if your next step is I want them to watch a YouTube of my full sermon, or you can see metrics. You can gauge like how many more views am I getting on my YouTube video? Is that correlating? Or I want people to come to my church. The only way really is a little bit of judgment, talking to people. I've heard pastors say things like, people came to my church this week, and the reason they found us, what they said was social media. They found us on social media. Those things happen. They're just harder to like. It's not as easy as seeing the metric on the video that says how many people viewed the video.
Right.
And that really is the only metric we have. So you kind of have to use that.
Sure.
But
on the content piece, but you could probably track like lift in follower numbers, you know, like if you're
But because of the way social media is changing, followers are like, people aren't necessarily following you as much as they are just watching your video every time it pops up in their newsfeed. So followers is a hard one too, but.
Yeah. So we work with a lot of different ministries kind of trying to sort through this stuff. And you said an interesting thing is like, if this is what I want them to do next, well, they never do what I want them to do. You know, like you can design these models and it's like people take any option that's available, you know, including walk away or whatever. But I think it makes it really important. So you talked about the funnel, but I also think about like awareness. You're discussing awareness stage. Yeah. As people move into like consideration and then decision traditionally, but I might say like commitment, there's a point where people go from like being an anonymous viewer to being a known person, which is really important in a ministry context because discipleship happens in the context of relationship and being known. So I think kind of creating compelling opportunities for people to engage a bit deeper. And I guess for anybody listening to this who's dealing in social media in this space, it's like making those things really well defined, I think might be a key to like more impact. If those connection opportunities are really well defined and tracked well, just keep running, the air coverage on social media. And but it used to be the case where you could really kind of drive people through a process a little bit more. It doesn't seem like that's as possible today. But I don't know if your view differs from that or not.
I
even hate talking about driving people, but
yeah. Well, I mean, ultimately, I think going back to what I was saying, I do think that should be the goal. There should be a next step. Church, right. I don't think. Maybe there's an argument against what I'm about ready to say, but I don't think the church's ultimate goal is to get views on a 30-second, 15-second clips. I don't think that's the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is something either next or a few nexts. And so, yeah, again, I could be wrong. Maybe there's a scenario I'm not thinking of in my head, but it's just that social media is the place that we can get that sort of first step.
Well, Corey, I think what you guys have built and continue to build is an amazing resource to make that easier than ever. We're hosting a conference over in Cairo here in a few weeks about AI, and the whole topic of conversation is how do you 10x like your people resources. And I think, maybe we can talk about this later offline, but if there's an opportunity to kind of make available what you guys are building to that team, I'd love to put it in front of them, because that is what's been in the back of my mind through this whole conversation. It's like you're just amplifying the time and the effort and the ability of what is usually a small group of people, and you're magnifying and getting that 10x increase. So great job. And thanks for doing that work.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you spending some time with me and wrestling through some of these things. I think it's new and emerging, and I'm sorry, some of my questions weren't like it's clearly articulated, but it's very interesting conversation about how this landscape is shifting right now. And I think what you've provided today helps some of our audience really figure out like what to do next, but also maybe spark some ideas about what might be possible.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.